our online meeting. This is the last of our series of public meetings for this year, some of which have been in person, some online. This is a very important part of my ability to hold the constabulary to account through the Chief Constable and to represent the public interest. Some of you know the budget for this year, the total policing budget, and including our commissioning, is just over £197 million. I am very pleased to report that for the fifth quarter running, Suffolk has the lowest recorded crime rate in the whole of England and Wales. And bearing in mind our financial resourcing from the central government, I think that's an excellent performance. Would like to say, of course, that doesn't mean everything's perfect, because it's not. Recorded crime is probably about half of the overall level of crime, but nevertheless, compared to other places, Suffolk remains one of the safest counties in the whole country. But as I say, there are issues that we need to deal with, and the pattern of crime is always changing, demand is always rising. I'm also pleased to say at the start of this year we had 1,425 police officers, and by the end of this year, financial year, so at the end of March 26, we should have an additional 17 officers and 9 extra staff, which has been funded through the Neighbourhood Policing Guarantee, which we got £1.8 million for at the start of this current financial year. So all in all, we're in a good place, but this is an opportunity for you to ask any questions you like. Please don't go into individual specific cases. By all means, give us your contact details and we'll come back to you, because this is a public meeting. But we do want to hear from you. Any concerns you've got, please raise the hand, and then I will come to you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to you. So who would like to ask the first question? Don't all rush at once, of course. So just use the hand signal, and then I'll come to you. And put your camera and microphone on when I call you. Any hands coming up? No. If you can't use the hand signal, just call out and just say your name, and I will come to you. So,
we're going to have a presentation on something.
Sorry, who was that, please? No hands up. Oh, Paul. There's a hand up from Paul. Paul, unverified. So if you'd like to put your camera on and your microphone. Thank you, Paul. Over to you. Thank you.
I'm just wondering what the constabulary is doing to help disability hate crime.
Disability hate crime. Okay, thank you very much. Ben Richards is on the line. Just before I come to Ben, I just want to make it quite clear that all hate crime is completely unacceptable. It is a part of our police and crime plan. And that, if you like, is the high level strategic plan for policing here in Suffolk, which was agreed with the constabulary, and that has a 4-year duration. So it's high level, it's strategic, but it is something that's taken seriously. And for other information, I sit on the Safer, Stronger Communities Board, and that is one of the top priorities for that board. So, Ben, I wonder if you could give some comments on that. What is the constabulary doing regarding disability hate crime here in Suffolk, please? Ben.
Well, I could echo Mr. Passmore's sentiment there that all hate crime is unacceptable. We in Suffolk follow national guidelines. We record all of our hate crime and our non-hate crime related incidents as per Home Office crime recording standards.
Whatever that is.
When hate crime is recorded, or any crime that's hate related, an OIC will be allocated to it, and all reasonable lines of inquiry will be followed up. If the victim of the hate crime, will make sure that the contact goes in line with sort of contact guidance, and we'll always agree that with the victim when we're recording the crime at the start of the job. So in terms of what we're doing, and specifically, we're doing everything that every other force is doing, and following all the national guidelines and normal. Unless there's a specific, I haven't got any stats with me around how many hate crimes we record in related to disability at the moment, but if that's something that people are interested in, that's something I could take away.
Good. Thank you, Ben. I just want to say that also when it comes to these issues, if there is a difficulty, contact your local neighbourhood policing, the community police officer. Some of you may recall that back in December, well, nearly 2 years ago, the county was divided up into 50 discrete areas, of which there is at least one and sometimes 3 community police officers. They should be your first port of call. But just to remind everybody, whilst we're online, if for some reason you're not getting what you need from the constabulary, here in the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, we are there to act in the public interest. So do feel free to contact us directly if you've explored other avenues and you're not getting a satisfactory response. As part of my role as Police and Crime Commissioner, to look after victims, look after the public interest, and hold the constabulary to account. So please feel free to do that. We get, by the way, I think last month, I've just had the data through, we had, I think, just over 120 inquiries and posted inquiries, email calls, etc. Which is a lot more than when the previous police authority was there. And we're there to help and, as I say, look after the public interest. And that new policing model, I think, has actually been very helpful in improving that connectivity and that visibility, which is really, really important for everybody out in the public. Okay, well, thank you very much for that question, Paul. Do we have another question, please, from anybody? Any hands rushing up? No, I think, oh, yeah, we are. Neil Humphreys, and I think the Chief Constable's joined us now. It's online. Okay.
Thank you.
Neil, thank you.
Yeah, Neil Humphreys, and I'm a councillor at Bungay.
Yep.
And I want to know what reassurances you as the Crime Commissioner and the Chief Constable can give that come devolution that the less populated areas are going to receive the same attention that some of the bigger areas are.
Okay, I think that's a very important question, Neil. And certainly we haven't got the details of the local government reorganisation, but when it comes to the Police and Crime Commissioner role, what is going to happen, it will transfer to the new mayor for both Norfolk and Suffolk, we're told at the moment from the government, on the 1st of April 27. So that's 11 months after the mayoral election. As far as I'm concerned, obviously I've got to declare a vested interest in the mayoral election. It's really, really important that the constabulary covers all areas, including remote rural areas like Bungay, which is just south of Eye. Bungay is one of our really important market towns, and I can assure you, from my point of view, we're there to represent everybody, and that includes small villages, hamlets, the bigger towns like Ipswich and Lowestoft, and definitely our market towns. And I'm going to hand over, Neil, if I may, to the Chief Constable, to Rachel Kitten, who's joined us. By the way, Ben Richards, he's an inspector in the constabulary. So, Rachel, the issue there, surely policing has got to continue. We would love to see it. There's no overall change at all, and we continue to look after everybody wherever they are in Suffolk. So, Rachel, over to you, please.
Thank you. First of all, good evening, everybody, and apologies that it's taken me actually over half an hour to try and get online. So apologies, it's taken me a little while to join you. I'm slightly late, but hopefully we can make up some of that time. And good question from Neil to kick off for me. Neighbourhood policing is absolutely essential to the model of policing in Suffolk. One of the wonderful things about being a police officer and working for the constabulary is that I remain completely apolitical in any process. So local government reform and redesigning the boundaries really makes little difference to the services that we provide through Suffolk Constabulary. Yes, the governance of what we do will fit under a new structure and a new model, but I will still lead Suffolk Constabulary, and so will the Chief Constable still lead the constabulary in Norfolk, and I make the operational decisions about how many police officers are posted to which locations and what they do. At the moment, the PCC then holds me to account that I deliver a good service to the communities in Suffolk, and in 2027, the mayor will hold me to account, or any person fulfilling my role in that at that time to account as to the services that are provided. How they measure that may differ according to their political persuasion. That's not for me to have a view on. My view is that I make sure that we provide a service that is appropriate to our values, and that is that it is fair and that it is equitable according to need and according to as much as I can possibly deliver across the county, then that will be designed as we currently have our neighbourhood policing model designed according to those hotspots and areas that need it most. And we are constantly, literally daily reviewing where that need is. So we have a daily meeting, every meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning, of the senior leaders across the constabulary, reviewing the last 24 hours and looking forwards into the next 24 hours and beyond as to where those fluctuations may happen. But I fully understand the area where you live and that you're concerned by. We have a number of those sparsely populated areas in Suffolk. It's one of those things that makes it a very special place to live, and one of the particular expertise areas for my staff is to ensure that we can serve everybody regardless of where they're living.
Thank you for your reassurances, Chief Constable.
Yeah, no, thanks. And just one other area that we do need to consider very carefully without coming to any conclusions. Whatever happens to local government reorganisation, whether we end up with 1, 2 or 3 unitary authorities, services that are at the moment county-wide, for example, like social services, trading standards, we've got a very good partnership between themselves and the constabulary and the county council. The youth justice service, something I'm particularly interested in, to make sure we help our youngsters make the right choices in life and don't get involved in crime. And various other things, looked after children and safeguarding. We need to make sure that work doesn't become fragmented and we end up with having to go to extra meetings. There is a way to do that, so it's not up to me to make a particular comment on how it's arranged, but I do hope that the government does take that fully into account, because we don't need to duplicate meetings. Now, that's a detail, but I just wanted to say that to everybody so that people understand that these important services that are very often below the radar actually do carry on in a seamless way. And I know the Chief Constable and myself are absolutely committed to making sure that that happens. But thank you very much for that question. Very, very relevant at the moment. So thanks for that, Neil. Now, who would like to go next? Who else has got a question? So please raise your hand. Alan Brown. Alan, over to you, please. Thank you very much. You can put your camera on and your microphone, if possible, please. Well, obviously the microphone, otherwise we won't be able to hear you. So. Are we able to do that? No, you're still on, still muted. We can come back to you if anybody else has a question. Please put your hand up, because then we can come to you, and hopefully Alan will be able to get his technology working. I think just oh, here we are. Yes, Bill Goldbart. Thank you. Over to you, please.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Two unrelated questions.
Yep.
The first one is, are officers able to attend parish council meetings to field questions, which obviously they may need to take away with them if they haven't got answers? And secondly, out of interest, what policing services are shared with Norfolk?
Okay, well, 2 questions. They're 2 good questions. Rachel, if I go to you first about officers attending parish councils, and then we'll go on to the operations that are shared with Norfolk. So, Rachel, over to you, please. Parish councils.
Thank you. Yes, good question. This is something that was carried out in the past. Unfortunately, we have had to be careful about the number of additional meetings that people go to. So what I say is that yes, they can, if there's a purpose for them to attend, and if it's proportionate to their time. And I know that can sound a little bit waffly, but what I don't want to say is no, that they're not going, because there are times when it is relevant. There are also times when there's nothing new to say, or the investigation or the inquiries can be carried out on a more specific one-to-one basis. What I have said is that I would probably expect them to attend at least once a year, just to give a sense of proportion. But it does also depend on the size of the area that they're covering and the number of police officers that are available in the area that they cover. So as you would expect, Where there are more densely populated areas, we have more community engagement officers. Where it's a more sparsely populated area, sometimes the engagement with those people living in that area will be different. It will be through perhaps more email or this type of online discussion, using the technology that we've got available to us so that we reduce the number of hours people are travelling on the roads, but also that we can maximise the time that we're speaking to people face to face. But I certainly do support in-person conversations, sometimes one-to-one, sometimes in small groups, and the parish meetings do provide that opportunity in proportion with the other commitments that they have.
Good. And just to help you there, if it's of interest to you, one of the things that we've done is got a collection of parishes to convene. We had one up at Metfield. I think there were 6 parishes came. I went along one evening for a Q&A, which is a good, efficient use of time, because very often neighbouring parishes have similar issues. But I'm absolutely very, very clear that good communication, timely communication is absolutely crucial. And sometimes, of course, in the more remote rural areas, that connectivity, just there being able to share issues, whatever it is very, very important. So that can always be arranged through our office. If we get a group, for example, like on a county council ward where sometimes you have 8, 9, 10 parishes, very happy to do that if we can fit that in, if that helps. But you've heard from Rachel there. Moving on to your good question about Norfolk, the collaboration with Norfolk started before I was elected. That I think was in 2010, and a lot of functions are collaborated. So the back office things are ICT, HR, finance, and so on. And then there's the operational side I'll ask Rachel to talk about that, what we call protective services. And if I was to share with everybody listening, each year now we're saving between both constabularies on a recurring basis nearly £50 million of taxpayers' money. And I think without that, I do not really wish to think what policing will be like in both counties. It's really important that we do that. There's also collaboration, not just with Norfolk, but with other regional parts, for example, Seven Forces procurement. Some of the technology under the Athena system is shared between 9 forces. And we also have what's called the ROCU, or the Regional Organised Crime Unit. So here in the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit, that's where 6 forces come together for high-level harm, dealing with organised crime, drug gangs. These sorts of things are really, really important. And of course, there's also partnerships, I was just saying earlier, regarding so for example, with trading standards, where we are multi-agency. If you look at our collaboration with police and fire, we have 13 shared premises. So I personally am a great believer in partnerships, but we do need to maintain that identity of local policing in Suffolk, which is what people see every day. That relationship with that local community policing is, if you like, the backbone, in my personal opinion, of what we do. So, Rachel, any more you can add to that? It's a really in-depth collaboration that we have here.
It is. It's highly effective, held up nationally as one of the best, if not the best, and certainly the most mature over the number of years that it's been running. We benefit significantly in that Norfolk and Suffolk are 2 police forces that are of quite a similar size, so that we are able to cover equally. And that I would want to stress that I have never once felt that Suffolk misses out or loses out to Norfolk, and I hope it doesn't happen in the other direction. From an operational point of view, I can split our resources into 2 operational delivery areas. One is around the detective, highly skilled investigative services. So there's a murder and a major incident team, which covers Norfolk and Suffolk. Fortunately, both forces are quite low in terms of the number of homicides that we have to deal with. So what that enables us as 2 forces to do is maximise some highly professional skills in that particular field. Also, under that umbrella sits services such as forensic science, and some of the very detailed areas of policing, such as covert and intelligence gathering, also sits into that area of investigation, specialist investigation services. The other side that we share with Norfolk is called the Joint Justice Service, and they are a team and a department of people that look at working very closely with our colleagues and partners in the Crown Prosecution Service. They, within our own Joint Justice Department, they run the custody centres and very much prepare files for court or for disposal once an individual may have been arrested or is under investigation, and that case goes forwards for further consideration in the court's process. So we, as you can imagine, both of those areas are significant in terms of their expertise, and we really do benefit, as I've already said, in terms of where we share those resourcing. And probably the last one to mention, just as a matter of interest, is that we have shared specialist services in dogs and dog detection, dog services, as well as our roads and armed policing team. They also cover Norfolk and Suffolk. So as you can tell, very extensive, highly specialist, usually quite expensive resources. So it's a very good way of us maximising value for money as well.
Yeah, and as Rachel says, it's one of the longest, and I'm sure it's the most in-depth collaboration between any two forces in the whole of England and Wales, and we'd be in one heck of a muddle without it. I think that's fair to say that. So that's really important. But thank you very much indeed for that question. And I think if we may, we can move on. I think Alan, you're it says that you are unmuted now, so we can hear you. So if you'd like to ask your question, that would be really helpful, please.
Right. Good evening, Tim. We were promised I'm on Police Connect, and I try and keep in touch with what's going on, and we were promised that we were going to see a bit more high visibility of the policemen on the beat. Now, I live in Newmarket, and I haven't seen any police walking around our estate for months and months and months. That's one of my questions. And the other one is that Newmarket is a big town. We used to have meetings with the Chief Constable in Newmarket. I know it's in every other town, Mildenhall, Hayfield, everywhere else, there's a meeting, but you never come and have a meeting in Newmarket. And perhaps you could explain why that is the situation.
Okay, right. I'll just give something there first, Alan. Now, for the last 2 years, we have had what we call a street meet in Newmarket in the middle of the shopping centre there, which has been very well attended. We do publicise that. I am in touch with local councils. I've always offered the town council, if they want me to come over there and talk to the town council one evening, that offer is always on the table. Newmarket, of course, is a very, very important town, the home of global horse racing, of course. And I do understand the way it's growing, like everywhere in Suffolk is growing, and that is important. Now, on the visibility, I will ask Rachel to comment more on that. But I will say we have increased the number of officers, as I said right at the very beginning. I'm not sure if you were with us in it, but at the beginning of this financial year, we've had more than we ever had before, which is 1,425. And the new policing model that came out in December 23 divided the county into 50 local areas with their own community police officers there, 1, 2 or 3. And there's around 800 officers in the local policing command in Suffolk, by far, as you can tell, of the biggest contingent of officers there. So visibility is important. I do think it's improved. We are getting officers there. But I'll ask Rachel to comment on that because, of course, the pattern of crime has changed. And I will say this, I've said it for years, you know, we do need more resources for policing in order to have more numbers, and getting the balance right is always a challenge. But please bear in mind the recorded crime rate is one of the best in the country. But of course, we do need to do more. Not in any way am I complacent at all. So Rachel, just a little bit of a comment about visibility in Newmarket specifically, please.
Yes, of course. I mean, I'm very pleased to say I was actually there in Newmarket a couple of weeks ago. So we do stay very tightly in touch with our colleagues in Newmarket. Obviously, there's now the joint fire and police station, and there's a fully staffed community policing team there as well. The community policing team in particular has part of their remit is engagement, and that engagement will take lots of different forms. It may take a form of walking some of the estates. It may be in the centre. It may be intelligence gathering from going into schools and other places where we have a number of people that we meet and greet and talk to. We do we do operate on a intelligence gathering and information directed policing. So it wouldn't just be police officers walking the streets to see if anything turns up. We unfortunately don't have enough police officers to do that. We have enough police officers in order to act on the information that we're given. So if you do have anything of particular concern that you want to report, I would ask you to please let us know, and we can then carry out those patrols where there are areas of concern. But Newmarket is very much an active part of the county, and it's certainly somewhere that I enjoy to visit on a regular basis.
Well, can I just come in there?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Yeah. We go for a walk every night in Newmarket, and I go up to the club in Newmarket. I go to the sports centre, to the gym. I'm seeing people, these delivery people delivering stuff with no lights on their bikes at night. I see youngsters walking, driving around on scooters at night, no light. And on Facebook, I've seen there's problems with speeding as well. And on our estate where I live on the Skullback estate, I've asked the policeman on the beat before, can we have some speed checks in this town? Speed is a big killer. And there are idiots that usually exiting road, but there's people riding around with no lights on, bikes at night and scooters. I saw two girls on a scooter one night, no lights at all. I shouted at them, and they're just stupid. And I don't want to see anybody really injured, but I see these things, but and stuff comes up on Facebook, whether you look at that to take these things into consideration. But it just worries me sometimes that somebody is stupid enough, these people, especially with the speeding bit, to get caught. So I'll just finish that piece and leave that with you.
Okay. Now, well, thank you very much, Alan. As I said earlier, this meeting is being recorded, and all the points raised, we will be taking them forward. So thank you very much for those comments. It won't be ignored. We will definitely hand that on to the local team. All right, that's the whole point of having these meetings. So thanks for your question. We're now going to move to Graham Izzard, I think. So Graham, over to you, please. You have a question. Thank you. You're on mute at the moment, and we can't see you. Okay, Graham, if you're not there, I'll go to the next person, which is Cheryl, and we'll come back to you. So don't worry. So Cheryl, are you able to ask away? And then we'll go back to Graham. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
No, grand. I just wanted to come back on Mr. Alan Brown's comments. Whilst I can't, I can only support him as far as the lights on the bicycle are concerned, but I don't think that is solely Newmarket's problem. I think that's all over. But I have to say to him, I have seen lots of policemen about Newmarket, and in fact, just this morning, I was having a colleague with a friend who comes in from out of Newmarket, and on the way out, she said to me, it's such a relief to see more police in Newmarket about and see them walking about the town. And I have to say they have, in these last few months, been very visible in the town, and I'm relieved to say that. So this just a comment I wanted to make rather than a question.
No, well, thanks, Cheryl, and I think that's important. And overall, I would say from our various public meetings with the extra officers that are now coming through full time, having completed their training, visibility is definitely better. And I know it's not sufficient for absolutely everybody, but of course there is much greater visibility. So thanks for that. And that's not to ignore your comment, Alan, and we will take that and see what we can do. But thank you very much, Cheryl. Appreciate that.
Can I just support that by saying they are engaging with people? I have twice today. I was down the town, and twice I saw them talking to people, stopping and having a chat while they're having coffee or something. So they are engaging and they are there.
Well, that's really good.
Excuse me, they need to be coming round the estate. It's all right being down the town, but we have lots of elderly people on my estate, and it would just be reassuring to see a policeman walk around and to see people. My neighbour next door last night, I know you can't be out at night, I spoke to her this morning. She had somebody knock on her door last night really violently, and I did phone the police and tell them this morning, threw an egg at a window, which I cleaned off today, kicking her door in. Now, I know you can't be everywhere, but it would be nice to see you along the estate so people could just, always a policeman, I'll have a little word with them about something. I mean, speeding on our Skullback estate, I'd like to see something done. I've done speed watch. These people on here are doing 50 and 60 mile an hour along Norfolk Avenue into Suffolk Way. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm just going to listen to what goes on.
Right. Thank you both very much. Rachel, did you just want to come in on that?
Thank you. I'd like to thank you both for bringing my attention to some of those more specific incidents as well, both positive and sadly, Alan, the last point that you made sounds quite negative. I will ask Inspector Ben Richards just to make a note of that. I think you said Norfolk Road, was that correct?
Norfolk Avenue.
Norfolk Avenue. Norfolk Avenue.
Yeah.
We will pass those on to the local policing team and ensure that they are being picked up. I would hope that they already have been, but that is antisocial behaviour and that needs to be reported. So you've told me, and we'll get somebody to go around and have a word. I just also wanted, just on the more general point about the Newmarket, to mention that we have been running an initiative in Newmarket. We're now running also in Ipswich and have previously run in Felixstowe, called Clear, Hold, Build. And the advantage of this initiative not only is it's a concentration of police attention where there are particular problems, but it is also in partnership with our local authority partners and other partners, as well as the local communities as well. So, for example, there's been some recent activity, specifically in Ipswich, around the attention paid to vaping shops that sell vapes illegally in many cases. And now that's something that Trading Standards, for example, can deal with, not policing. And we've been able to work in partnership. So there are similar schemes and initiative running in Newmarket, and it's been highly successful. So it is a part of the responsibility of policing, but it is also important that we work with other partners as well to deal with some of these problems.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. That just gives me a very quick segue when it comes particularly for activities for youngsters so they make the right choices in life. And I'm not by any means saying that all youngsters cause antisocial behaviour. There are plenty of adults who should jolly well behave themselves. But the grants scheme that we have, which we run in conjunction with the Community Foundation, does help youngsters, give them a purpose in life and all sorts of things like that, working with various charities. Really, really keen to do what we can to support youth organisations and so on as we go forward. So that's all on the website. And that Clear Hold Bill, we can certainly help with the build part after policing and other partners have done what they need to do. Okay, well, let's move on. We'll go back to Graham, please. I hope you can.
Yes.
There we are. Here we are. Yeah.
Good evening. Sorry about my technological glitch earlier. I'm retired. I gave up driving a year ago because I didn't feel comfortable driving in modern traffic conditions. I live in the centre of Bury, so I'm very lucky not having to rely on the motor car. So, preface my comments, I'm broadly or more than sympathetic to endeavours to not to allow older people who shouldn't be on the road continuing to drive when they shouldn't be driving. May not be a very popular observation to make at this forum, but I'll just offer that to you. I would support the police checking that people who are on the road driving cars are fit to do so. Having said that, I'll move on to two other things. I'm an independent custody visitor at the local Bury St Edmunds Police Investigation Centre, and I'll preface my comments by saying how impressed I am by the calibre of the custody staff and how important it is to have experienced custody sergeants in post, and I'm very humbled by their service and how they provide a very good service, not only for detained persons who can be referred to L&D, but behind the scenes, we are very fortunate having committed officers in post in that role. But I have one observation to make. One aspect of seeing people in custody is how a significant number of them shouldn't be there in the first place, particularly those with mental health issues. And so there's a social problem there, and I feel it's unfortunate that the police are picking up society's problems. And I think what I've seen of the handling of people who are vulnerable in various ways, we should all be very grateful for the service. But there is one aspect of the funding of that facility, and that is the reliance on contracted health services, which are now in hands of Mitie. And I would throw into the ring for you, Tim, that I feel that any measures to bring services back in-house so that they're directly under the control of the police would be something that I would see as a positive thing, not only because of the grounds of cost, but the involvement of local people on a continuing basis rather than who are living locally and recruited to a role and they're employed by the police service or the NHS and designated to help, rather than relying on very expensive contracting out organisations. I have an issue with the absence of resources for fraud, and I know that Suffolk Constabulary possibly may not have specific resourcing for that, and fraud is dealt with through the City of London Police's adjunct action fraud. But then I have another role as a citizens advice advisor, and I come across people who have been the victim of fraud of one form or another. And I have some reservations about how effective or well-resourced action fraud is. So anything that Suffolk Police can do to make it more transparent, or sorry, increase awareness that there should be more of a national priority for dealing with fraud and white collar crime, which is insidious. It's sometimes linked with offshore gambling, which is another issue, and dealing with people who get into debt for all sorts of reasons. Very often gambling is a major problem, and so that's something that I feel should remain of concern to everyone in the constabulary, even though Suffolk Police may not have very much of a role for investigating fraud, but I do feel that action fraud really may not have the resources to deal with the issue in the way that we need. Finally, I have make a statement how I take part in a Saturday morning vigil on Angel Hill for a body called Friends, Bury St Edmunds for Palestine, and I'm very appreciative of the role that Suffolk Police have in allowing peaceful protests, particularly this particular vigil, which we don't engage with the public. Seeing what I see of policing in other parts of the country, particularly in the Metropolitan Police area, I have some concerns about how policing may be evolving due to political pressures, and I'd like to give my heartfelt plea to say, can we keep politics out of policing, which it is not the case in Suffolk. And I appreciate the way that my interactions with local police officers has been thoroughly positive, and I appreciate the sensitivity and good sense. And I would just hope that light touch approach with policing people who are exercising a democratic right to protest is able to continue.
Great.
Thank you.
Graham, thank you very much. There's a lot there. First of all, I really do want to thank you very much indeed for all we do as a volunteer for the independent custody visitors. And for those of you who don't know online, ladies and gentlemen, when people are detained, they go to the custody suite and they are, I suppose, assessed whether they are charged or released. And it's really important that all their rights and entitlements are looked after properly. And the independent custody visitors do an excellent job there. And we're very fortunate in Suffolk. We've got some of the best, if not the best, custody facilities right across Norfolk and Suffolk. So that's really, really important. And when they've been inspected, the most recent report actually did highlight the great work that you all did. So I think someone's
Bringing
got,
that stuff is personal.
could we just make sure microphones are off? Thank you. Regarding mental health, that is an ongoing issue, and Suffolk Constabulary started the Right Care, Right Person initiative. Well, it would be nearly 2 years ago now, and that was a lot of consultation, working with other agencies to make sure that those suffering from mental ill health are attended in the main by properly qualified practitioners, which, as you rightly say, they're not police officers. Obviously, police officers are there to help in times of emergency or if a crime is being committed. But that is an ongoing issue. It has bedded down very well in Suffolk. And as regards the Mighty contract, well, that's something that Rachel and I are having discussions about at the moment. And if we can find a way to make sure that we can improve the service, we certainly will. One of the difficulties we've got at the moment, of course, with the increase in the costs of national insurance, employers' costs, some of these companies are saying, well, they want more money. Well, I have my own views about that. But this is one of the challenges going forward. We don't get any extra money for that, despite the fact that costs are going up. But I can assure you we're looking at that extremely carefully. And if we can find a mechanism to improve that, bring it back house or a joint venture or something like that, I can assure you that is right on the agenda, and we will be doing that. It's got to be good for the people. It's got to be good value for the taxpayer. And it also needs to have a degree of flexibility to make sure that it works well. And I think that's what you were hinting at. I will bring Rachel in a minute. I'll just quickly run through this. Fraud is a really, really important issue. The level of fraud is increasing drastically. And I've said ever since I became a police and crime commissioner 13 years ago, the resourcing going in nationally to fraud is pitiful. And successive governments of all colours, I don't think, are actually taking this seriously. What we've done locally, we have a joint initiative with Trading Standards to appoint shared funding for this, for fraud prevention. It's never enough, but it's a lot better than nothing. And I do think the way that organised crime groups, be they overseas or wherever, I've been a victim of overseas crime fraud on a credit card. I got the money back, but nevertheless, somebody has to pay for this all somewhere. And we need to raise awareness. That's why we've got this joint post. But I absolutely agree with you, and we'll continue to lobby for that through Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, National Police Chiefs Council. It does need to be taken seriously. And lastly, on the issues about protests, well, that has always been a hallmark of our British tradition, which I think we're all very proud of. You have a right to protest about anything as long as you're compliant with the law. And I think it's fair to say, Rachel and I have discussed this, we've never had any real big problem here. You have the right to protest. That is a hallmark of what we do. And as long as people are compliant, then I don't think there's going to be any problem. And I think we're very fortunate in Suffolk. Generally, people get on very well with each other. And that is part of the way we are, the way we live and work. And long may that continue. And I think that's a really important point, Graham. Thank you for raising that. I'll hand over to Rachel, because I'm sure you've got one or two other things you'd like to add to all that. So, Rachel, over to you, please.
Thank you, and thanks, Tim. Thanks, Graham. I think actually you've had a fairly full description from the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm just going to add, for your own interest, a level of detail to the fraud part of your question or your comments. So we have increased the number of people in the fraud team in Suffolk. It is a highly complex type of crime, and of course covers such a wide range. It's both serious and organised crime, and it can also be a community-based crime as well. I just wanted to emphasise the number of people have increased. We also do work not only just with Trading Standards, as just been mentioned, but also we have that link into our Eastern Regional Serious and Organised Crime Unit. There are some highly specialist individuals who work in that team, as well as those in our own digital cybercrime team. So depending on the nature of fraud, which of course takes all sorts of different types of approach, then depends on the resource that we pull from. It is actually far more prevalent and increasing in comparison to some of the more traditional crimes. And we're seeing constant reductions in our more traditional crimes, such as burglary and robbery, potentially because people spend far more time online, and now therefore that is a crime of choice, it seems. And policing, as we always have done, we are training in order to address those new and emerging crimes as they develop. But I think probably, unless you have some further questions, I have nothing more to add to what's already been said.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much, Graham. We'll now move to Inga Lockington. Inga, good evening. Nice to see you.
Yes, hi. I just wonder, a couple of years ago, you talked a lot about how easy it should be for people with domestic abuse to report it. Is it now as easy as you talked about, that they can do it from home and report it quietly? Or how is it going? Do we have more domestic abuse, or are we getting a more sort of friendlier neighborhood, or families are, how are things going? Because domestic abuse is awful, because there often are children too who suffer in a family like that. So how is it going?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really important question, Inga, and it's something that we've all been working on a great deal for many, many years. I suppose in one way you could say, well, the actual recorded level of domestic abuse and violence incidents has declined slightly over the last year, which is good, but it's still, I think, about 9,000 recorded cases every year, and that's just what we know about. It's under recorded, and we know the devastating consequences there can be, not just for the individual, but if children are indirectly involved. If that's what they witness, then the problem can be that's how they seem to think it's acceptable behaviour as they enter adulthood, which of course it's not. But there has been investment in the constabulary with the new rapid video response, video call real-time information. Rachel can certainly talk more about that. And of course, we have expanded the capacity in the control room and the digital desk as well to make sure communication's easier. And I think you may know from your county council work, there is this very big network now of domestic abuse champions. I believe there's over 1,000 people now within business, the public sector, charities, who are there to act as a sounding board, a person, a confidant that you can talk to if you've got concerns and worries. And I'm also pleased to say that business now understands that if you've got people who are suffering with domestic abuse and violence, they're not going to be as productive. You get higher levels of absenteeism, sickness, etc. So it's a really serious issue for society. And I know there's a huge amount of resources that we put into that. Some of the contracts that we signed, for example, for the Independent Domestic Violence Advisory Service, they've got a 3-year contract with the option to extend it for a further 2 years. That gives the charities certainty for those that work there. And that service over the last decade or so has expanded from one advisor. And I think we now pay for a 15, 16. Still a lot to do. Can't be complacent, but I do think progress is being made. But of course, it's never enough. But Rachel, yeah, the new technology we're using, there's all sorts of things going on in the constabulary now, I believe, aren't there?
Yes, there is. And thank you for the question. It's something that I think probably concerns us all. And those offences that are happening inside people's houses are always particularly difficult to investigate through traditional policing methods. So we've had to rightly develop the technology in order to improve access to the victims, but also to improve the recording of investigations. So for those that are not aware, there is now a scheme that started as an initiative for domestic abuse called DAVR, Domestic Abuse Video Recording, and it's the use of the victim's smartphone. They can choose to connect face-to-face with somebody from the control room and report immediately what they're experiencing. So the person receiving the call in the police control room can see both injuries. The individual may not even be able to speak, but just by being able to make face-to-face contact with a controller in our police control room allows us to have some sense of what's happened. We can also review whether there's children in the background as well, and so on. That scheme has actually been developed further beyond DAVR to other offences as well, because it's proved to be so successful. And we're developing that into other areas of reporting crime as well. One of the reasons why that's particularly successful for domestic abuse victims is that we don't have a police car turning up outside the house, which might not be what every domestic abuse victim wants to have in their street and in their community. And that allows us to provide a service without drawing attention to the house. Sometimes that is entirely appropriate to do so, and it can help solve a problem. Sometimes it actually has to be a report that's been made in secret. So it does allow us to have a lot more flexibility. One area that I just want to mention without taking up too much time is to talk about our domestic abuse perpetrator program as well. So allowing perpetrators the opportunity to change their behaviours, as is commonly understood. A number of people who express and commit domestic abuse offences often come from a whole history, often having been children with adverse childhood experiences themselves, who then go on to copy domestic abuse behaviour. The perpetrator programme allows those individuals to go on to diversion schemes to change their behaviours and not be repeat offenders, and that's proving to be highly successful as well.
No, thank you, Rachel. That's really important. Sorry, Inga. Yeah, please.
I better admit I'm a trustee at Iceni in Ipswich, so we do some of the programs.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it is very useful, and we need to do all we can to support everybody, whether it's a man or woman in domestic abuse, because they can be men as well as women.
Yeah. As I said, with the Venture program, now we've been down to see the perpetrator, and there's just a couple of things to quickly mention. I think it was Vodafone for victims. They've supplied free mobile phones where they can victims can really contact emergency services quickly. And just to share with everybody, we actually do support charities county-wide, be it Compassion in Sudbury, Waveney Domestic Violence Forum, Women's Aid in Ipswich, Restore in Bury. So there's a whole lot there, and that's a really, really important piece of work. But as I say, never enough. But thank you for that question. It's really, really important. And let's continue with the next question then. So Nick from Neighbourhood Watch, please. You're next. Thank you.
Tim and Rachel, hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And you too.
I'm Nick King. I'm on the committee for the Suffolk Neighbourhood Watch Association. And I just wanted to underline that point you said right at the beginning, Tim, is the excellence of the constabulary in reaching the top of the league in fighting crime when you compare it with all the other police forces. That's phenomenal. And if I had a fanfare, I could push a button and have trumpets blowing a fanfare. We'd love to do that. So well done to the police, and keep us up the top of the league. It's so important for us. Neighbourhood policing was touched upon. And of course, that relationship of neighbourhood policing and Neighbourhood Watch is really central to our volunteers and the work we do. We've got about 400 Neighbourhood Watch schemes right across the county and 3,000 members, and it's growing every day. And the reason I wanted just to ask Rachel a question about the release of Suffolk Connected, which we're a great fan of. Perhaps you might explain. It was released on the 1st of October, but it's a wonderful, you mentioned new technology. Well, it's a wonderful new technology, and it connects the police with Neighbourhood Watch. And I know something like 41 out of 43 police forces now use the equivalent of Suffolk Connected. But it would be great to hear Rachel's understanding of that and her vision for the future of Suffolk Connected.
Thanks. Rachel, straight in.
Well, thank you for your very kind words. We need to have some advice to Microsoft Teams that they have, a balloon or something that can go up when such comments are made. But I do appreciate it, and I'll make sure that is fed back to the frontline officers and staff that work so very hard. A point that one of the meeting made earlier, they do work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, and a lot of them are in very stressful, isolated situations and locations a lot of the time. So it's always good to have that great feedback, and I'll make sure that's passed on. In terms of Suffolk Connect, I'm really pleased that we have taken this step forwards in terms of making that contact with our communities. I've already said how I find the area that we cover so diverse and in many places hard to reach, just simply because of the distances involved with our sparsely populated areas in particular. Suffolk Connected is the opportunity for us to speak out to the communities and also to receive information back. And I would ask anyone on here to please look into connecting through Suffolk Connect, so that we can have that information flow. We are only successful because of the information we receive. The last of these meetings that Tim and I were engaged with, the inspector that joined us at that particular event stood up and said how he had been at school in the building that we were talking in at that time, and it was his local area that he was working in. That is the nature of Suffolk Constabulary. We have people who generationally have lived here. They know those connections, but we operate and act on the information we receive from the local population and local communities, and Suffolk Connected allows us to do that. The more that we use the technology, the better we and the technology can become. So thank you.
No, not at all. I think you've had over 1,000 members have joined in the first month, Rachel. So that's phenomenal. So no, we're in great support of that. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Nick. And could you also pass on, we are all very, very grateful for all the work that you do, like all volunteers. And I think it's fair to say that Suffolk is probably the best county, and I know I'm a little bit biased on that, with the people who volunteer to help each other and look after each other, of which Neighbourhood Watch, of course, is a really important organisation. And I'm not just saying that, we've got one in my own village, and I know what a difference it makes. So thanks very much for that. And
thank you.
That's good news. Okay, we've got two more questions. So Neil Humphreys and then Terence Curran after that. So Neil, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you. This is a question more for Rachel. There was concerns in Bungay last Boxing Day with the hunt and officers being able to resource that correctly. Can I ask what plans you've got in that, because they're looking to come back and ride through the town again on Boxing Day? I know the local MP has probably contacted you about it as well. So can I ask you, firstly, do you have this in mind? And secondly, would you allow your senior officers to use Section 60 if it's appropriate?
Okay, thanks, Neil. That's directly for you, Rachel, that one, I think.
Thank you. And as a rural county, Bungay's not the only place. We have a number of hunts, and Boxing Day, of course, is a traditional time of the year where they gather. Policing operates, as I've said earlier, we are apolitical and we operate to deliver against whatever legislation is in place. It's not for me to judge one way or the other. The senior officers on the ground and those that are involved in talking to both some people that may be protesting and as saboteurs perhaps, and some people who are actually carrying out the hunt, it is their job to understand what the situation is. If anyone on either side or in any part of the situation is committing an offence, they should be dealt with. There are lots of different ways of dealing with individuals, and depending on the size and what's happening will depend on some of the action that is taken. So it may be that the evidence of an offence is recorded and individuals are visited after the event and action is then taken. It may be that arrests have to be taken at the time in order to try and bring around a sense of peace to the circumstances that they find themselves in. So it is not for me to dictate. It's not for me to dictate what powers they should use. They have access to all the powers that are legal if they see and if they can then justify the powers that they take. It does very much depend on what happens. Of course, we all live in a very peaceful county where I would hazard a guess that we would all like to see everybody be able to get on all the time. We don't always agree. The important thing is to plan for it. So we have already got the information of what is being considered. Those conversations will start a long way in advance of the actual day on Boxing Day. And the more information, going back to my previous point, the more information that we can receive from everybody involved, as to what their intentions are going to be, the more that we can ensure that there's a peaceful situation on the day. It is a time of the year when we should be celebrating, being festive, celebrating the peaceful environment and the communities, and particularly the young people that that are part of our community, that enjoy Christmas. It's not a time for us to be falling out with each other. And so the more that the police can play our part in ensuring peace on our streets at that time and in our rural communities, the better. So yes, you can be assured the planning is taking place. The officers are very skilled, extremely skilled, very knowledgeable, because it does happen every year. So we do know the people involved, and there's no reason why it should be any worse this year than any time previously. I just ask people to talk to us and let us know what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope that satisfies you there, Neil. And of course, it's all about people being compliant. I would just say this as a civilian: just behave yourselves, people, whoever you are. And I know that's something the constabulary tries very hard to do there, and that's really important. Okay, well, thank you very much for that question. We're nearly out of time, but we have got time. Terence Curran, I think you have a question, and I think you're the last one we have up there. So over to you, please. Thank you.
I've just got to get up.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. You might not be able to see me, but Tim, you're going to be putting your name forward as the mayor in next year, 2026.
Yes.
27, with Caroline Topping. I'm sure there'll be a couple of other names that come out. But when it all goes, if it happens, and when you are, hopefully, you probably will be mayor, because the police are going to come under the mayor.
Yes.
So I've been told, yes.
Yeah.
So this is all going to be a cost-cutting exercise, as usual, by the government. So, because also you're going to get a lump sum, which is going to be around about 450 million for 30 years. This is what I've looked into.
Yeah, I think it's more or less right. Yeah.
Yeah, but what that doesn't show is it's index linked. And if it's not index linked, that money will run out within 20 years. Yeah.
Yes.
So, they're playing you already.
Yeah.
And also you're going to be cut there. You're going to be losing a lot of staff. So is all the Suffolk councils are going to be losing a lot of staff. So it's going to put pressure on for everyone.
Yeah.
And I just even down to the police. Have we got, technology is the way forward. Are we going to see facial recognitions on the streets in camera wise and going directly into Ipswich and Lowestoft? Or is that not happening at the moment?
Okay.
Or a few years' time?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair question. I'll ask Rach to talk about technology. I think we're both big believers that technology potentially has a huge role to play to improve economic performance, safety, etc. And I'm not hedging the question here. That's definitely not my style. The problem at the moment is with this mayoral thing, we are told it's about £30 million a year spread across both counties for the next, I think it's £37.5 million actually, for the next 30 years, which comes up to your sum there. But yes, there's no indication of it being index linked. And if inflation carries on at 4% or so, you can see the value of that money will diminish. What we are trying to do before we get to mayoral elections is to have a lot more clarity on exactly what's happening. And I'm not making a political point here. This is just a fact. Regardless of who wins the mayoral election, we need an awful lot more clarity. So all I can say is there are discussions going on. We have a regular update with the Home Office and Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Please, can you give us clarity what the budget will be, exactly what the powers will be, what about the restructuring for local government, which doesn't directly affect the mayor, but it will, as you rightly say, have other implications. And we need to be sure that we know what we're letting ourselves in for. What we don't want is a pig in a poke. And if we're really going to put both counties on the map, well, then we need to have the resources. The other thing I would just say, I've asked the Home Office this, are there any plans to merge the two police forces? They assure me there are not. Now, I can't say any more than that. I don't have a secret plan to do that if I was lucky enough to be elected. So there's an awful lot of water to go under the bridge. Where we're going with this local government reorganisation, I don't know. We are told we probably won't hear till the end of February, March of next year. Well, that's an awful lot to do by then. So there's all sorts of complexities I was hinting at earlier when it comes to policing functions, be it youth justice, trading standards, a shared estate with fire. And by the way, the new mayor will take the governance role for both police forces and both fire and rescue on the 1st of April 27, 11 months after the election. We need a lot more clarity, and that's where we are. So I wish I could tell you more, because I think we'd all like to know. But on the point of technology, facial recognitions, you know, there've been some successful trials in Suffolk, but I know Rachel's very keen on expanding the use of technology in all sorts of ways. We mentioned the video response for domestic abuse, for example, earlier. There's a lot to do there, single online home, there's all sorts of things. So Rachel, have you got anything you'd like to add on the technology front?
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Terence. So some good points covered there. And just on that point, particularly regarding the facial recognition, we have used it in Suffolk on a couple of occasions. It tends to be used via vans at the moment, so mobile units, and in places where there's I think there's somebody who's not on mute. Might be in your, might be clashing with, Terence, can you hear me? I think you may have some. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So I'll just carry on. So using in vans, in mobile units, in areas where there's a particular crowd, so lots of people passing by the camera, and being able to pick out people who have already committed offences and, for example, failed to return from bail or have avoided being detected by police. So these are people who have already committed crimes. I think that, and I do understand that there is some nervousness around use of facial recognition, as there is often with new technology. It is still something that we are exploring, but I do see that there is a potential to maximise our time in policing and therefore use police officers more effectively to engage with victims of crime, so that the detection of crime can be more speedily committed and we can carry on with those that should be taken to justice. So really keen to support it, but also really keen to make sure that we evaluate it scientifically and professionally before it's introduced more widely.
Good. Thank you very much, Rachel. Now, before we close, has anybody got any other questions? And thank you, Terence, for raising that issue. I don't see any hands coming up. And just to tell everybody, the film of tonight's, the recording will be put on the website in the next few days if anybody wants to look at it all over again, or parts of it and so on. So I think with no further questions, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time. We've had a good set of questions, wide ranging, which is always very, very helpful. And many thanks indeed, and look forward to meeting some of you in the near future. So thanks very much. Good night.
Night.